Hey y'all, Fat Man Outdoors. Want to do a quick video with you today. Something you might not be thinking much about this time of year, but it's very important. Muzzleloading season ended in December. This is now, we're at the end of March. But a lot of guys may have at this point forgot to either unload their muzzleloader after they went on the last day, or they shot it out and put it up, but they just didn't clean it and prep it for long-term storage for the rest of the year. As y'all know, if you're shooting black powder, it's somewhat corrosive, so it's not a good thing to leave it, the residue from that powder, whether it was shot out or just unloaded without shooting it, you know, taking out the breech plug and pushing it out, which is not recommended if you don't have to do that. Most manufacturers will tell you you're better to shoot the gun and then go clean it than you are to try to take it down without firing it, because that black powder is somewhat pressure sensitive and you could have an accident. So if you're going to take it apart to take the powder and the bullet out, it's best to go outside and do that and have the muzzle pointed in a safe direction, because you could have an accidental discharge doing that. So but going on down the line from where we want to go, I wanted to show you the muzzleloader that I like. I've had this old muzzleloader for a long time. It shoots really well. A lot of you are probably going to be familiar with seeing it. It's a Remington 700 ML in real tree camo, stainless steel. Got the stainless steel Simmons scope on it. Has the original recoil buffer pad on it that they put on them in the factory. One thing that has been changed in this rifle, and it has been checked to make sure it wasn't loaded. There's no primer on the nipple or nothing. I don't know how well you'll be able to see down in it till I take it down, but it does not have the old number 11 primer nipple. It does have a nipple in it that shoots 209 shotgun primers. The original runs of these rifles had no number 11s on them, and there was a lot of misfires, hang fires. Companies come up with kits where you could change them over from the number 11 to the 209, and there was some of them that was pretty labor intensive and knowledge intensive. You almost needed to be a gunsmith to do it, because you had to do some drilling and stuff like that. And Remington changed it and put a breech plug in that had a nipple with it that accepted the 209 primers to stop a lot of the hang fires or slow fires, or even some misfires. 209s are much more likely to go off, and go off a lot hotter than a number 11. Number 11 caps can be maybe go, maybe not go. We're going to test that theory pretty soon with the Turkey Terminator 2000, because that's the nipples it has. It doesn't have 209 primers. It shoots number 11. So fingers crossed Turkey walks out in front of that shotgun, that we're going to have good detonation and not something funky going on. But let me get the tools I need, and we'll get this rifle started taking apart, and I'll show you what I do. It's a very quick, very simple thing to do to get your rifle prepped for long-term storage for the summer and wait until the fall to come back around. Alright, first thing we have to have, we've got to have a 3/16 Allen wrench, and we've got to take this screw right here out. And what that is the screw that retains the bolt. Now, when you put these bolts back in, make sure you put a little lubricant on them. Some people put gun oil on them. Some people put a little dab of grease on them. Either one will work. Just want to make sure that that little screw has some sort of lubrication on it, so it doesn't seize up. It's very important. That little screw, it does two jobs. It holds your bolt from falling out, and it is the guide for the bolt when you open and close it. And by that, I'll show you what I mean. This groove right here in the bolt that runs the length of the bolt, that the tip of that screw, when it's tightened down, sits into that bolt, and it aligns the bolt properly. So when the bolt works, it keeps it straight and keeps it where it needs to be, and lines it up right so everything will work properly. So that needs to be one of your number one things that you check and that you maintain. The bolt for these is just a straight Mauser style, actually a Mauser style bolt. The system works exactly the same. The takedown is a little complicated on them. I'm not going to go that far. because I usually only clean mine, the bolt, take it down and clean the interior of the bolt every 3 or 4 years, because I know mine stays oiled well, and there's just not the new system, there's not a lot of stuff can get in them now. With the old number 11 primer systems, a lot of carbon and stuff would blow back into the bolt, and you'd pretty much need to take it apart and clean it every time you shot it. Now you really don't need to do that. You know, if I got out and shot this thing 15 or 20 times, then I'd probably go ahead and take it down. But usually with this rifle, because I've never had a problem with it ever getting off a zero, the week before muzzleloading season, I take the gun to the range and I'll shoot it once or twice to make sure it's on target, and it always is. Usually I only have to shoot it once, and it's right on at 100 yards, and then everything gets wiped down and oiled again, and there's just not, I don't shoot the gun a lot, so that there's just not a lot of carbon being pushed through it. But like I said, about once every 3 or 4 years, I'll completely disassemble this bolt. But we won't do that today. May do that at the beginning, right before muzzleloading season, to show people, if they've got this rifle, how to take this bolt apart, because it is kind of complicated. You have to do a few little steps to get it taken apart, and what to do to clean it, and what to inspect, and what to check. But we won't do that today. Alright, now that we've got that out, what you're going to need is, you're going to need a 7/16 socket with a long extension setup that's long enough to go in through where the bolt goes in the receiver of the rifle to reach the breech plug so you can take it out. And it's got to go, try to get this up here where you can see it, it's got to go in just like that, and then you just turn and unscrew the breech plug. Now if you use a 7/16, you'll take the breech plug and the nipple and everything out at one time, so you ain't gotta separate them. Now I like to do it that way because, like I say, with the old number 11 primers, there was a lot more carbon that got in there, and you needed to take the nipple and the breech plug apart to clean them more thoroughly. Okay, now that you got the breech plug loose, you can take your socket and extension set and just lay it to the side. You won't need that for a few minutes. And then you can literally just raise the rifle up at an angle, and the breech plug and the nipple will all come out together. And you can see how it's kind of black where it was shot, and then reloaded. And then that we had ready for muzzleloading season. I didn't wipe all this down well, because I wanted to do a video later of what it was to clean this. Okay, so now really with this breech plug, it's not going to have, you can see it's just discolored, but there's no buildup of carbon or anything. It's very slick surfaced, so not a whole lot to clean there. I can just take a rag, wipe it down a little bit. The big thing is to make sure you don't have any powder in your threads. With me, I don't use loose black powder or Pyrodex or any of that stuff. I use the pellets. I like Pyrodex pellets. I'll show you those in a second. Now, to give you a look at this nipple, I pull the nipple and the breech plug apart. This nipple, it's a little bitty fella. With the 209 goes right down in there, and it's got like a little bird cage design that once it goes in there, it's the tolerances are made to where they're pretty tight, and when the 209 slides down inside of that, then there's just enough force against the walls of the 209 to hold it so it don't come back out and fall out when you're walking in the woods, or you got the gun setting up in your blind or whatever, so it'll just stay in place. Now it just screws into that part of the breech plug, and I can look through that. That's the good thing about these breech plugs that do these 209s. You can see how big that hole is, so you get complete ignition. Right on the other side of that hole from your nipple is the powder charge, so there's no small port like with the number 11s. It's big and wide open. I can see through that, see the threads are good and clean, there's no carbon buildup, there's nothing on it. So then I'll just screw my nipple and my breech plug back together. and they still have lubricant on them from what I'd put on them, so that's why I didn't put any new on it. They weren't dry or anything. They weren't good. They were good. Threads were clean, so I just put it back together. I will lubricate the breech plug itself before I go to put it back together, because I'm going to clean those threads real good with a brush right here in a second. Now, the next thing to look at is we're going to look down the bore of this rifle and look at the condition of the bore. But again, it's safe to look through. There's nothing in it. I'm going to just look down the bore, see what I can see, and there's absolutely no carbon. There's no fouling inside the bore. The bore is just slick. There's nothing in it. So I could probably leave this bore, with this being a stainless rifle, I could probably leave this bore just the way it is, and it'd be fine for the rest of the year. But I would rather take the precaution of running a couple of patches down it to make sure there's nothing, because I guarantee you there's going to be something come out on the patches once I do that, because there's going to be some buildup, you know, from the shooting that we did when I tested it. And with me, I only clean my rifle once a year, and that's after season. I'll take it to the range. I'll do that 1 or 2 test fires. I'll swab the bore one time, put the breech plug back in, and then after I do that, I will reload the rifle, and unless I shoot at an animal, that load stays in the rifle for the duration of hunting season. Reason I do that is because I use the pellets. It's not anywhere nearly of a mess using those pellets, because until you shoot that gun, there's not a lot of contact with the surface of your rifle with those pellets, because they're not granules, and they don't get pushed into all the little crevices. They're an actual solid pellet. Like, again, I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Now, all I'm going to do is, this is just a dry patch. Okay, now I'm just going to run this rod with the patch on it dry through the bore all the way through. And that bore, like I said, to me it looked clean, but I guarantee you that it's not. I know it's going to have some powder residue on it. What I was doing was just getting an extension to finish pushing the rod on through. Now let's see what we're looking at here. This is what this rifle looked like after I fired it twice. I haven't cleaned it. Not bad. It had that much powder residue that come off in the barrel. I'm going to run this same patch back down through the barrel again, and I'm going to turn it over, use the clean side. Make sure you line it up where there's patch on both sides and spread out evenly amounts the rod. Now what I'm going to do this time is, I'm actually going to, by doing this, it's going to knock loose anything. Now you saw that first time we pulled it through and there wasn't a whole lot that came through. Well, there's going to be a bunch come this time. Look at this now. Just because I put a little scrubbing action in there, knocked stuff out of the rifling and really got rubbing it around in the barrel, that's just stuff that's built up in there from being shot a couple of times. So now that barrel, when I'm going to look down it, is going to be really, really clean. Oh yeah. Now if you, I don't know, I'll hold it up here to the camera for you. Let me try something here. Usually I can do this. Put a little light down in there. And there you go. You can see down that barrel now. That thing's shining like a mirror. That's got every little bit of dust and everything that was in it is now out of there. Alright. That's what we wanted. Now, that's one patch. That was the patch to clean everything. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take a second patch and I'm going to put just a dab of rim oil. Now everybody's got their favorite gun oil. I've got 4 or 5 different kinds. I like rim oil. Rim oil's never done me wrong. It stays where I put it, and I've never had rust issues. And I've got some old guns. I've got a gun in that gun safe. It's 140. Was made in 1888. Y'all do the math. That hurts my head. That gun don't have no rust on it, and it's because that gun gets rim oil. I like rim oil. Y'all get whatever you like, whatever you think works good for you. I'm cool with that because I ain't got a problem with it. But now I'm going to put just about 4 little dabs, and when I say little dabs, I mean little, because it's not even enough to cover the whole patch, and that's actually more than you need. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the gun upright. I'm going to lay the patch on the end of the barrel, and I know most people know how to own a gun, know how to clean a gun. I'm just showing you what I do because it might be a little bit different than what you do. I don't know. Then I'm going to go with this patch. Now when I push this rod down, right at the end of this rod there is a little nook right here that I want to hold that with my thumb. I don't want the rod to go all the way through, not yet. Now I'm going to take and I'm going to do the same thing I've done with that other rod, and I'm going to scrub up and down, scrub up and down, scrub up and down all the way. Now that's what happened after I run the oil patch. Now the bore is super duper clean. You wouldn't think there would have been that much stuff still down in that barrel. Residue from black powder, whether it's Pyrex or it's true black powder, it's there. There's a lot of it, and you got to take care of it if you want longevity for your muzzleloader. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that patch on the barrel that I just put all that extra oil on, and this time I'm going to do it a little different. I'm just going to go real slow, just push it a little bit at a time. I mean, I'm just going to barely take my time and let it go down in there slow, because I want oil to get on the entire surface of the inside of this barrel and lubricate everything. And it'll actually take some dirt off as it comes out, but there won't be much. It'll be clean as it needs to be and lubricated. So now I'll take my extension, push it the rest of the way through, and I'll show you here. Yeah, it's got some on it, but it's not terribly bad. It's just got a little bit on there, so that's got the whole barrel is now lubricated. Put the rod back out now. Put the rod back in its holder. And what I like about these rifles, they have fiberglass rods. They're real strong, and don't have to worry about the barrel or the rod breaking when you're loading it. But I've never had a problem with the tight load on these rifles. This rifle here's always been real good about not catching a lot of carbon, so if you got to load quick for a second or third shot, usually I have no problem, especially with the bullets that I use. I'll show you those in a minute. They're pretty nifty too. Now I'm going to take that same patch that we just ran down through the barrel, because I don't need to clean the outside of this, because like I said, it's stainless. Okay, now that we got the inside of the barrel well cleaned and well lubricated, I'm going to take that same patch that I used, that we just cleaned the inside of the barrel with, and I'm just going to wipe down the inside of the receiver. Just going to rub that inside of the receiver and rub it around in there. Get oil on everything, clean all the surfaces, which, like I said, this is a stainless rifle. That's what I like about it. You don't really got to worry about rust. It's kind of, it could rust. I mean, it's metal and it could deteriorate. Being stainless does not mean it won't rust. Being stainless means that it's less apt to rust quickly. So it can still rust. You have to take care of it. So now I'm going to take that same patch, because it's good and lubricated, and I'm going to wipe down the bolt. Okay, I'm going to wipe off all the surfaces on the bolt. And again, this is just to make sure everything's got an oil lubrication on it. It's got a good coating on it. That's what I like about rim oil. Don't take much to do all that. Get it all wiped down. Now, back to our nipple and breech plug. Now, this is what I do with mine. I take a little nylon brush out of my Allen gun cleaning kit that's part of my range stuff, and I just brush the threads. Because now, even with the Pyrex pellets, when you push those pellets down in there, you may do some deformation to the end of them, and a little bit of the compressed powder may come off. And when you take that breech plug out, if it's still loaded like I just done with mine, that's because it was still loaded from the season. I had never unloaded it yet. That some of that powder's may very well get on your threads, and you don't want that, because that's the corrosive part, and you don't want that in your threads. Okay, and now that we've done that, I'm going to also stick the other end of this brush, which is really narrow, up in here, and I'm going to turn it around and around and brush out the threads where the breech plug goes. It's kind of hard to hold the gun up, and I'll kind of, maybe I can tilt that. No, I can't tilt down that far enough. So, but anyway, that's why I just stuck it in there and turned it around and around like that to knock out any of them that's in that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rim oil, I'm going to put a little spritz on the threads, right on the threads. Alright, and that's all it takes. And I'm going to turn that and let that rim oil go around the threads, around and around the threads, and let it get in all those threads. And I can even take my fingers and aid it in going around the threads. Guys, and I'm sorry for me having to look off from the camera and move around so much, but there's a lot of stuff you got to use when you clean these guns, and you can't have it all piled up right here in one spot, because then instead of me leaning over or having to reach and grab something, I'd have to be stopping every 15 seconds to pick something up off the floor. But anyway, now the breech plug and the nipple are wiped down, and they're lubricated. Everything was cleaned. They're good for another year. So now I just slide it right back into. Now this is something I want to kind of try to show you what I do here if I can. Yeah, okay. So now I'll just lay that right in the groove that the bolt goes in, and it'll shoot right home. But now it's just sitting on top of the threads. So now what I got to do is I got to get my wrench, my socket, and my extension put together, and I have to go down through that channel where the bolt goes, right through the receiver, and thread the breech plug back into the barrel. Now I'm going to tell you something on this right here. Don't tighten these down. Don't go crazy on tightening the breech plug, okay? Now you're going to see me right here when I feel this stop. It stopped right there. It didn't get tight, okay? Because I can turn it back the other way. So you watch. I can turn it back the other way, no problem. But it stopped right there. The threads ended right there. And that's as far as you need to go. You don't need to crank down on that. There's about 14 threads on that to hold it in there when you shoot it. So it doesn't need to be touched down. It just needs to stop. When the threads stop, that's as far as you need to go. I've got muzzle loaders. I've actually got one here. A really good CVA muzzle loader that shot accurately. Really good shooting little rifle. But the boy that had it, he didn't clean the threads on the breech plug, and it got some Pyrodex on it. He let it set for the whole year, and he actually got it out, but when he got it out, when he put it back in, he tightened it down just as tight as he could tighten it, and he hadn't properly cleaned those threads out. They were now full of Pyrodex and full of rust, and were corroding. So then it went a whole nother year. We broke 2 of the stem tools that you get with a CVA to take the breech plug out. We broke them trying to take that breech plug out. Still haven't taken it out. So he ended up letting me have the rifle. I purchased the rifle off of him, and every 4 or 5 months I spray some liquid break-free stuff like that liquid wrench. Is one kind. There's several penetrating oils. Just whichever one I've got handy, I'll come in there and I'll spray a bunch down that barrel. I mean a bunch, and it's sitting on a big mat in my gun cabinet, and if it drips through, it drips through. I haven't attempted to take it out this year. I'm going to try that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of those stem tools, and I'm going to weld it to a socket and put it on an impact gun and see if I can hammer it out, because just twisting it, we broke 2 of them trying to get it out. It was that tight. If I can get that out, I think I can revive the rifle. It's a good shooting little gun, but you can't take it apart and clean it the way it is right now. I'll probably end up having to throw that breech plug away and then inspect the threads real good to make sure I think they're going to be safe, and if they are, get them cleaned up and get all the crud out of them, and then put a new breech plug in, because I'm sure that breech plug in it is probably toast. But anyway, back to what we're doing. So now screw in the breech plug till it stops. Don't over tighten it. I can't stress that enough. Do not over tighten it. Same thing when you put your nipple back in your breech plug. Screw it in till the threads stop, and then that's as far as you go. Don't tighten it down. Don't put any torque on it. Just till it stops. That's all you need. Now, we're going to take our bolt that we've wiped down with rim oil and got good and lubricated, and we just slide the bolt in. Now, I don't push the bolt all the way in. Not yet. Leave the bolt out just a tad, about halfway. Okay. Then we're going to take our little screw. Alright, and it's still lubricated good. I can still see grease on it. It's in good shape. I'm going to stick it down in the hole where it goes and tighten it up. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because you need to make sure it gets in that groove when you tighten this down, because if you don't, and now this bolt, you want to tighten down somewhat. You don't got to kill it, okay? But it needs to have a little bit of pressure on it. I don't know, probably 5 pounds of pressure, but not much. But you got to make sure it gets in that groove, because if you don't, then your bolt won't travel. If it's not in that groove, your bolt won't travel. Make sure your bolt will travel and it'll close. Okay, now, then you need to make sure that the gun safety works. Okay, that's what I like about these rifles right here. They got the authentic Model 700 safety that works off your thumb. I love that. These guns are really nice. I like them. Like I said, once you get that deal with them number 11 caps taken care of, and you get you something on there where you can shoot 209s, there's a lot of different ones out there that you can change this with. A lot of them are very complicated. You have to drill stuff out and all that garbage, because they were some federal law stuff going on, and they wanted to try to be able to match every state's law. So they made them to where everything was legal, even to go into California. So, but that made, when it got to you, you still had to do some work to it. You know, had to drill a hole out and stuff like that. But now they make some kits. I think one of them is called Badger, is the brand. That's probably the most popular. And it's just basically, you just take your breech plug out, put your breech plug back in, put their breech plug and nipple back in, take your bolt out, and it's got directions on how to change it, and change the firing pin for the bolt, and you're done. That's all you got to do. Now, once you've got this far, you've got the barrels cleaned, the barrels lubricated, and the receiver's clean, the receiver's lubricated, the bolt's clean, and it's lubricated. The breech plug and the nipple has been cleaned and lubricated. Now, like I said, it's stainless steel. You ain't got to worry about the inside of it much. The part that I pay more attention to on the outside than anything is the scope. Okay. Now, a lot of people will have just regular scopes, and that's fine. You know, on muzzle loaders, doesn't matter. This one actually has a Simmons on it that I really like. It's TV view. I would show you how to look through it on the camera, but it's really hard to get anything lined up. It's a 4 to 8 power zoom, 4 to 9 power, I'm sorry, and I like it because it's stainless steel and it matches the rifle. But it shoots real good. It's held true. I've owned this rifle for 12, 14 years. Shot a lot of deer with this rifle, and even some coyotes. And I want to get a set of rings for it, set of mounts and rings that are see-through, because it has a really nice set of ramp style buckhorn sights. Maybe I can use them. I don't know. My eyesight's not like it was, but I'd like to have that availability, like for low light situations, or if God forbid something happens in the mountain, it's raining and my scope fogs up. But it never has. The Simmons are really good for not having that issue. But on the outside, I look at all my screws. I feel everything, try to move everything, make sure nothing's loose or anything, and look and make sure there's nothing going on with my scope. No foreign material on the lenses or nothing like that. Make sure that my caps are on securely. The rifle's good to go. Now it just needs to be put away. Hey guys, if you liked the video, hit subscribe. Don't forget to click that bell so you get notifications the next time we put out a video. Appreciate you. It's the Fat Man. I'm gone.